Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Manifesting Muslimah. I'm your host, Zara Pedersen. It has been a minute since I've done a regular podcast episode because the last time you heard from me was during the Ramadan series, and I had a completely different introduction during that series, to the point where literally when I sat down now to start recording this episode, I was like, oh, wait, how did I used to introduce my podcast before? So I actually had to go to my podcast app and listen back to one of my previous episodes that wasn't from the series. So I could be like, oh, yeah, that's how I used to introduce the podcast. Anyway, anyway, I'm back. Alhamdulillah. I took a little bit of a break after the Ramadan series. I needed that for my own sanity. The Ramadan series was so much fun to record. I've had an amazing time doing that, and knowing also about myself that I can do that now was pretty cool. And the feedback, hearing from you guys, has been so amazing on YouTube, on Instagram, on Spotify. It's been so incredible getting to get some feedback from you, getting to know some of you. So thank you all so much for being there with me and going through Ramadan with me in that during that series. But it is no longer Ramadan, although this episode today is Ramadan adjacent, or I mean, we're going to talk about Ramadan today. And I'm just going to go straight into it. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that because if you're watching on video, you might get distracted by my hand. The henna is hennaing only on one hand because I got lazy. I did one hand and then I was like, you know what? I can't be bothered doing the other. But so you know, maybe tonight I'll do this one. Probably not. But you know what? We can dream. But it is henna. I'm sure you know, but like it's just because I'm waving the hand quite a lot when I'm speaking, so it might be a little bit distracting. And if you're just listening to the audio, you won't see it. Just know that it's very red and beautiful. All right, so let's get to the topic today, because one thing that has happened at the point of me recording this episode, it's been almost 2 weeks now. Has it actually been? No, it has been 2 weeks today since the final day of Ramadan. So at the point of recording this, it has been 2 weeks since Ramadan ended, Alhamdulillah. And I've had some conversations with a few of you. I've had conversations with people in my membership, some of you online, some of my private clients, and there's kind of been a bit of a conversation that I feel is quite necessary for us to have before we move on. And I think also for a lot of us to be able to move on following Ramadan. And that is that this Ramadan, for a lot of people, whether or not it's the first time it has been this way or it's the first time people have been vocal about it, was a bit of a struggle. And it has kind of been the whole of Ramadan, because I do remember also seeing at some point or another throughout Ramadan over on the socials, some people posting videos and stuff about the fact that they feel like this year it's been more of a struggle for them, that they've not felt that connection that they usually feel, or like that they're really just kind of just pushing their way through. And to me, it's been quite interesting, because if you've been following me for some time, or if you've been consuming any of my content for some time, you'll know that I'm quite vocal about Ramadan not necessarily being my favorite time of year. And I get hate for it. I also get love for it. And I'm not doing it for the hate or the love. I'm doing it, being vocal about it. I'm doing it because I know that there are people out there who needs to hear that perspective. Because I think there's something that has been lost throughout the years with Ramadan. And that is the fact that Ramadan is a test. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be not necessarily a struggle, but it can be for a lot of people, and that there's nothing wrong with that. And that it's not necessarily, while we can enjoy the spiritual highs we may experience during Ramadan, the whole month of Ramadan in and of itself is meant to be a test. And tests are not necessarily easy for everyone. They can be easy. They can be, enjoyable for a lot of people as well. Not every test that Allah gives us is meant to be horrible for us to go through. But there is something to be said about the fact that many tests that Allah will give us we're meant to overcome something within ourselves. And that's kind of the whole purpose of it, that we grow in one way or another, that we learn to push our limits, our boundaries, our mental capacities, our perspectives, whatever it might be. And I think in the greater scheme of things, that has been lost a little bit when it comes to Ramadan, in sort of, especially on social media and how people talk about it. But I think also just in general, like, I think there was a specific post on Instagram I saw, and I'm so sorry because I didn't take heed of who like actually posted the post on Instagram, but I just kind of reposted it, and it was, you know, about the over romanticizing of Ramadan, and how it's not about Ramadan being sort of like this. And when I say romantic pit, you know, I'm talking about it from like this sort of trendy thing, you know, of romanticizing your life. So we're going to romanticize Ramadan as well, right? Um, and I saw that, and it was such a beautiful post that I reposted it. And it was basically, and I agree with the sentiment. It's like this, it's okay if your Ramadan is not sort of like this romanticized month of your life. And it's okay if you're having a difficult time with it. But I think that narrative is not spoken about enough, to the point where people who are actually struggling or having a difficult time with Ramadan, or may just not be enjoying it as much, feel very much left out of the conversation in general, because it's not a very mm, popular narrative when it comes to Ramadan. I feel like, because I didn't give my little disclaimer at the beginning, um, but I feel like I need to say this because a lot of people take these kinds of conversations very personal, which it's a little strange to me, but this is not just about me. So, okay, my opinion aside, a lot of people take this conversation very personally. So, when I say, hey, some people are struggling through Ramadan, I do get a lot of people on the other camp who almost take it personal that I might not enjoy Ramadan, and that they're enjoying it. But I'm having such an amazing time. But that's the best time. I'm enjoying it and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm saying it that way because that is the way it comes across on the other side of it. Of like, hey, I'm voicing my opinion. Hey, this is not like my favorite thing. This is something I'm struggling with. This is hard for me, but I'm still doing it because I love Allah. And the onslaught is not, oh, you know what? I never, you know, the I would think, I'm so sorry, I'm all over the place right now, but it's because there's so many things I want to say about this, but I'm also trying to be a little bit PC around it, because I don't want to like deliberately upset or offend people. But I do know, as I said, that people take this very personally. I would have assumed that as grown people, even on social media, if somebody says something like, hey, I know a lot of people enjoy whatever, but Ramadan. But it's difficult for me. I would have thought, or that's at least how I would have approached it, would be like, oh my goodness, I never thought that some people might not enjoy it. I personally have a good time with it, but I can understand and sympathize, you know, if you're going through a difficult time, and I pray that Allah makes it more enjoyable for you in the future or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, where there's a little bit more empathy, maybe something even to the point of understanding what a privilege it actually is, what a gift it is, what a blessing it is from Allah, that you're able to enjoy Ramadan, that you're looking forward to it every year, because not everybody has that. But it's almost as if that kind of just like straight over people's heads when you say something like, oh, Ramadan is not my favorite time of year, or I'm always struggling, or I don't enjoy fasting, or whatever it might be, that people see it as like this personal thing of like, I have to make you enjoy it, or I have to make sure that you understand that I am so good that Ramadan is like my favorite time of year or something, right? That's the way it comes across on the other side, okay? I don't want you to, if you enjoy Ramadan, this is not a personal attack on you. Please listen to that again if you need to. Rewind, listen to that again if you. This is not a personal attack on you. Me making this episode, anybody speaking on this subject, is not a personal attack on you if you're enjoying it and you're loud and proud about it. Have Wallahi, I think most of us are jealous, like not in a horrible way, but like we wish that was us, if we're struggling or if we're not enjoying it. But the reality is still that some people are going to have a difficult time with Ramadan because we're feeling the test side of Ramadan more than you might be. And that's okay too. You're allowed to decorate, you're allowed to be whimsical, you're allowed to do all the things for Ramadan, go above and beyond, you're allowed to do all of these things. But for some people, doing the bare minimum during Ramadan is still hard, and that's okay too. And again, I think what happens when we're sort of highlighting one voice but neglecting another is that we're creating this imbalance where we create more shame and potentially also guilt for people when they don't have the same Ramadan feelings or ambitions or productivity. So when the only narrative is, look how much more I get done during Ramadan, and I am such a spiritual high, I feel so much closer to God. And we don't have the opposite end of the spectrum, which is, I'm struggling just to pray my 5 times a day. Then those people who are struggling to pray 5 times a day might feel more guilty that they don't have that kind of energy, that they don't have that kind of capacity during Ramadan. And one of the things that kept coming up for me this year, not me personally, but through my work and people coming to me and sharing what's been going on for them, is, that they've been able to do more maybe previously. And I can certainly relate to that. I feel like my last year's Ramadan for me was far more productive than this year's Ramadan was for me. But I'm okay with that because I understand that it's like an ebb and flow thing for me. Some things are good, sometimes some things are not so good, could use a little bit more work and improvement for some, like that. My religious journey, how even if I've done some things many a times, can still use more work. Like there's definitely improvement to be had regardless, right? But some people take it as a negative, some that they've done something wrong. So one of the conversations that I've had to have with quite a few people this year, especially coming up to the end, towards the end of Ramadan, but also shortly after Ramadan, is almost having to, tell people that it's okay. I don't know how to, like, comfort people in, like, hey, so you didn't finish with a bang this Ramadan, or because you just didn't have the energy or whatever. Like, khair, inshallah next year we can do better and we're going to try. But giving people allowance to be people, to struggle with a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that, I'm going to just reiterate it again. Ramadan is meant to be a test. Ramadan is a test. Ramadan is a test. Some tests for some people are going to be easy, and some tests for some people are going to be very, very, very difficult. And you can land on either end of those two spectrums. And that's it, completely okay. The point is that you're still following through for your love of Allah. You're doing it for the sake of Allah. I haven't done a single I haven't done a single year of fasting because I wanted to fast. I have done fasting because I want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm human. I'm looking for satisfaction and ease and whatever I can in my day. And ease is not necessarily fasting for 30 days straight. That's not what I would consider ease. It may be for you. Alhamdulillah, mashallah, tabarakallah, but it's not for me. So when I'm fasting, when I'm going into Ramadan, I'm doing it purely because I want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has nothing to do with whether or not I find it easy or hard, or I'm finding enjoyment in it, or whatever it might be. It is only for the love of Allah that I'm doing it. And that's enough. And there will be days where I want to go above and beyond, where I'm reading extra in my taraweeh, where I'm sitting with my Quran for longer in the evenings. There'll be days where I'm like, today I literally just need to spend the evening on my sofa or in my bed recovering or catching up on sleep or whatever it might be. And that's okay too, because I know my limits and I know how not to drain myself. This is, as I said, a journey. It is not a sprint. Even in Ramadan, it is not a sprint. Yes, we're meant to try and go a little bit more above and beyond what we usually do. And there's a lot of rewards and benefits and blessings with that. So whenever we can, we absolutely should, when we have that kind of capacity within us. But if pushing ourselves there means that we fall off the face of the earth, that our mental health can't keep up, that we're suffering physically or any other way, then there is a limit. There is a point where we have to now ask ourselves, is this now beneficial for me as Allah's servant in the long run? Because it's not just about the short term here. So if you need to go to sleep one night, then go to sleep, right? And by the way, and I need to say this again, as I always have to say it, I feel like it's just such a necessity to say. I will never say don't pray, don't fast, none of those things. But we also need to take into consideration that we're human, and fasting for 30 days straight, even though it has its health benefits, of course it does. I used to work in the health industry. I know about the health benefits. I used to work out during Ramadan, and because of my insulin levels being low and being able to produce more human growth hormone, I've done the challenges when I was quite a bit younger though than what I am today. I've done all of the stuff for the health benefits as well and really looked into all of that. So I get it, I understand that. But there's also a very human, very real limit to the fact that we are people, and sometimes our mental health is struggling, sometimes our physical health is struggling, sometimes we're in a different part of the world where maybe we're alone physically, mentally, whatever it is. We might not be physically, but we might feel lonely. Maybe we're spiritually just struggling. Maybe we've just gone through something really difficult that's just challenging our reality, whatever it might be. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say with everything that I've said so far, and I'm hoping that you can find some sense in everything that I've said, because this is the first, again, as I said, the first episode coming back after a couple of weeks break. And yes, I do need to get back into the routine again of sitting down and just speaking into the camera. It's okay if you struggled through this year, Ramadan. It's okay if it wasn't your favorite Ramadan, and I'm going to put that like quotation marks, because it could be, but we might not see it until some time down the line. Do you want to come up, Violetta? Okay, never mind. But we may sit back and now look at it as it's been a couple of weeks and reflect on it and feel like we've let ourselves down, that we've let Allah down, that we've not done enough. And so we can look back on the time with regret almost. And I want to give you some type of permission here to accept that the test can be hard, and it's okay if you were struggling through it this year. It's okay if it wasn't your highest performing test this year. You did your best, and that is what Allah will look at. And this is not a question of like, oh, I'm going to just be lazy and just do the bare minimum. This is a question where we're talking you're actually struggling. Okay, we're not giving permission to people just because they don't want to do it. Like, that's not what this is about, right? So please don't read that into this. But it's okay if it was hard. It's okay if you showed up for your fard prayers and that was it. It's okay if you only gave the minimum in charity. It's okay. It's okay if you didn't run a marathon during Ramadan. It's okay. Allah still sees your intention. Allah still knows what's in your heart. Allah still knows how hard it might have been for you. So the fact that you even showed up for the fard prayers, for the minimum, for whatever it is, for the fasts, just the fasts alone, may mean more to Allah than you could ever know. And it's not for us to say, it's for us to understand that our connection with Allah is more than the performance outwards. Okay, it's more than what other people might see and measure it upon, whether or not we have our house decorated with Ramadan decorations, or whether we learned to recite a new surah from the Quran, or whether we donated the most in charity, or whatever. All of those things are beautiful. And if you can and you have the capacity to do it, mashallah, tabarakallah, continue to do that. But if you don't have that kind of capacity and you didn't have it this year, then that's okay too. Allah still sees what's in your heart. Allah knows that you were still showing up for the love of Him. And that's what truly matters, that you weren't doing it for everyone else, that you were doing it solely for Him. That was one of the things I really had to remind myself of this year, because as I said, this year for me was also a struggle. Every year for me in Ramadan is a bit of a struggle. I always have a difficult time. Part of it is because of the sleep schedule and my mental health with my anxiety and depression. They go against each other. I always end up having so much anxiety and depression during Ramadan because it directly, with the sleep schedule being all over the place directly impacts it. And so I always have so much trouble just keeping my mental sanity at a somewhat normal schedule. And I'm medicated, by the way, now. Like, so imagine if you've got something and you're not medicated and you're going to try and have to deal with that on your own. It's hard, sis. Like, it is hard. And I empathize and I sympathize. It's hard. And so this year, when I was really going through it and I was like struggling to just keep up and find energy and all of those things, I just had to remind myself again of like, Allah knows He doesn't need to see this big show and dance that other people can recognize. I was very sort of, other than my Ramadan series, I stopped posting online, um, and I just devoted entirely for myself energetically just to be with Allah, because I was like, I can't, I don't have it in me to do these big things that other people might be able to see and like be like, oh my God, Zara, you're going above and beyond. It was like, no, this is between Allah and I. And so I'm going to do what I can to safeguard that, even if it's just for this month, in the sense like I'm going to like really cocoon it. Like I'm going to wrap it in cotton and just remind myself, you're doing this for Allah, you're doing this for Allah, you're doing this for Allah, you're doing this for Allah. Um, and and just focus on that on those really difficult days where it was just hard just to show up for the basic, for the minimum. Do you know what I mean? Um, One more thing, I can't remember now. I wanted to share one other thing. Yes. Um, for anybody who is sitting out there, and because again, as I said, this is not my first rodeo. I've shared about this topic for a few years in a row now, because again, I feel like it's a narrative that it gets drowned. And unfortunately, I do feel like it does quite a bit of damage for those of us who may struggle more with Ramadan, whether it is struggle every year or just having like, oh, this year I struggled, next year I'm going to have a good time, and then I might struggle again in 5 years' time, whatever it might be. Um, as I said, this is not the first time I share about this. If you are sitting out there and you cannot relate to anything that I've just said, it's okay. This is not me shaming you for finding it easy. As I said, some tests from Allah can be blessings in like that they are easy, some can be more difficult. I would, if you are sitting out there and you're one of those who can't relate to anything that I've said, then I would encourage you to give thanks to Allah. Um, Show your gratitude to Allah that you don't have this specific part of the test in this dunya where Ramadan is difficult for you. So perhaps it's just the highlighting of a blessing that you didn't even know was an issue for some, you know, um, because that's what we usually do, right? You know, in the Quran, a few times in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us, you know, that we don't recognize the blessings that we have, you know, that we can see, we can smell, we can hear, we can taste, you know, the basic things, because there are people who can't see or hear or smell or taste, you know, like the things that we take for granted. And sometimes that can even be something like Ramadan, enjoying Ramadan, feeling that spiritual closeness to Allah and having that ease during Ramadan. And so instead of seeing this potentially as me shaming you or criticizing you or something for, you know, how dare you romanticize and have fun during Ramadan when other people are struggling, because that's certainly not what I'm doing, perhaps, you know, see it as an invitation to you to thank Allah for the fact that you are able to enjoy Ramadan to the extent that you are, because not everybody can and not everybody has that ability. And for those of us and you out there who may have struggled this Ramadan, again, remind yourself that it's a test for a reason, and that just because you struggled this year doesn't mean it has to be a struggle next year. Just because you didn't feel that connection this year doesn't mean that Allah doesn't love you, that you did something wrong, or that you missed something. Sometimes it's just that we have to feel the physicalness of the tests in this dunya. Sometimes we have to feel the hunger pangs. Like I know, for instance, just to give you like an example, my dad, my dad is a camel. Like he will go a whole, like he doesn't feel the physical aspects of a fast of Ramadan anytime. Like he finds it easy, alhamdulillah, mashallah, tabarakallah. It's amazing. and he can, drink a sip of water and have two dates and a piece of cheese for suhoor, and he'll go the whole day, and then he'll also go for a run and stuff. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. He's also like in his 70s now. And it's impressive. It's super impressive to watch. But, growing up with that for myself, with somebody who very much feels the physical aspects of hunger, I had to remind myself that my body's just different, and my Ramadan might just be different to his, where he may go through something else that I'm not privy to during Ramadan that I don't have to deal with. And that's just the way that it is. Some people will feel the physical aspects of Ramadan more. Some people will feel the spiritual aspects. Some people will feel the mental aspects. Some may feel the economical aspects. So many things, so many things can be felt more than others. And if this year you were feeling it on most, if not all of the aspects, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, Allah is testing us. Allah wants you to grow. Allah wants you to understand how blessed you have been up until now, if this is the first time you've had that kind of struggle, that to remind you to be grateful for the fasts and the Ramadans where you don't have those kinds of struggles, or whatever else it might be that Allah is trying to teach you. But ultimately, remind yourself, if you're still sitting out there and you're still feeling shame and regret over this Ramadan, thank Allah for the fact that you saw the Ramadan. Thank Allah for the fact that you showed up, even if it was just for the bare minimum. Thank Allah for, inshallah, giving you another chance next year. Thank Allah for the test. Thank Allah for the growth. Thank Allah for the introspection that it gives you to struggle through something like that. There are so many things to be grateful for, even when something feels hard and difficult and a struggle. And so you didn't fail. Allah just highlighted something for you that He wants you to be aware of. And I can't tell you what that is, but again, that introspection and giving it some time might highlight that in time for you. All right, that is where I'm going to leave this episode, my darlings. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. I'm going to come back now to a regular schedule of an upload every single Monday. And inshallah, I'm actually also thinking that I'm going to start a Patreon where I'm going to put an extra episode a week as well. Inshallah, every other week. I haven't quite decided. And so if that is something you're interested in, then keep an eye out. I will be announcing it very soon, inshallah. So if you're interested in more episodes from me on my podcast, then that will inshallah come very soon. But until then, my darling friend, I will see you inshallah next week. Yes, something to that effect. I forgot how to make my introduction. I forgot how to do my exit. I've forgotten everything, my dear. 2 weeks is all it takes. Alhamdulillah. My darling, I will see you in the next episode, inshallah. But until then, my darling friend, please don't forget to live in love. I got it. See. Okay, bye.